Hello and welcome to a very special edition, if you will, of Investment Immigration Conversations. I'm your host, Carolyn Lee, principal and founder of Carolyn Lee PLLC, a U.S. investment immigration law firm dedicated to helping clients build their futures with investment immigration. Well, today we're trying on a fun and slightly different format. We're kind of styling it a coffee chat session with our very dear good friends, Chloe Capital managing partner Elisa Miller-Out from Chloe is here with us today. And this is a victory lap. We're celebrating and we want to share the news and the story behind our recent E-2 approval for a fantastic client whom we shall affectionately call George. I'm going to start with just a brief recap of George's story and his journey with us. And then I'm going to turn the mic over to Elisa to kind of tell us Chloe Capital's story, which is also inspirational and phenomenal. So we had one of these events with Chloe Capital with Elisa Miller-Out, talking about Chloe and the hybrid E-2 solution for investors seeking a base in the United States. And I got a call after that event from a tax advisor, cross-border tax advisor, whom I had known for many years, and but we hadn't been in regular touch. And he called and said, I've got a client who I think would be interested and would be a perfect fit for your E-2 hybrid with Chloe. And so we started talking, we met the prospective client, and he had a wonderful career in the tech field himself and in business, and was very interested in Chloe and what Chloe was doing, and kind of understood the language as well. And we made the introductions, and his advisors came in because there's planning involved, and making sure that the tax issues are properly set up and handled. And once the decision was made to go forward with Chloe, it was a coordination between the Chloe team and the client's tax advising team and my team in the investment immigration front to work together to get this vision of setting up a solid U.S. base for the client that works with his planning, financial and tax planning, and from an immigration perspective together. And it was about, at that point, making sure that the immigration business documents were settled and finalized and complete and compliant, and working closely with the client as well on documenting the lawful source of funds side, and getting those two pieces together, coordinating with Chloe's team on the closing for the subscription, putting those all together, getting to the finish line at the close, and then making the filing. And of course, the filing was made on February 14th, Valentine's Day, and it was approved by USCIS 9 days later. It was a premium processed case. So we are absolutely thrilled. We all did the victory lap, popped the champagne cork, and just thrilled. So George, if you're out there, we're still thrilled for you, and we're here to share the good news with other folks. So with that, I would love to hear from Elisa to share the Chloe story with folks. Who Chloe is, what you've been up to. Tell us.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carolyn. I'm Elisa Miller-Out, managing partner of Chloe Capital. And Chloe Capital is a movement-driven venture capital firm investing with a gender and diversity lens. We began our journey because so myself and several of my partners were in the tech entrepreneurship world. And I was a software entrepreneur for many years, creating custom software for startups as well as Fortune 500 companies and universities. And what I saw firsthand over and over again in the software industry was that there was a lack of diversity, frankly, from both, the standpoint of gender as well as racial and ethnic diversity. And over again, founders who were underrepresented were being overlooked and undervalued by the typical venture capital world. So only about 2% right now of the venture capital industry capital goes to women founders, and for women of color founders, it's actually less than 0.1%. And unfortunately, even during the pandemic, those numbers have even gotten a little bit bleaker just due to the disproportionate impact of the global pandemic on women and underrepresented groups as well. But what Chloe saw in all of this was an incredible opportunity, because the data also showed over and over again that these women and diverse founders, that when they're given the opportunity to connect with some capital, some networks, and some resources, they are building these multi-billion-dollar businesses and incredibly successful when they have the opportunity. So Chloe Capital was founded out of a desire to both make tremendous financial returns as well as to make an impact by investing in these women and diverse founders, and to solve some of the world's biggest problems. So we look at themes like climate, education and workforce, and health, some of the things that impact all of us as humans. And we see where these diverse founders are looking at these problems in unique ways due to their experiences, and solving these problems in unique ways that create incredible businesses and drive investor returns, and also help solve the. So that's the quick overview of what we're looking to do.
It's like the ultimate win-win.
Small goals, right?
Yeah, I was just saying, it's the ultimate win-win-win for everyone, including the planet. I mean, it doesn't get bigger and better than this. So what can you let's break it down to the real elemental pieces. What's venture capital?
Absolutely. So venture capital falls in the private equity capital spectrum. So we mostly think about investing, a lot of us think about it in the public stock markets. And most of us are familiar with that type of investment. We might do it in our retirement plans, invest in stocks and mutual funds, and all publicly traded securities, which are very liquid and are traded on these big exchanges, right? And you can trade them day to day, minute by minute, etc. In the private capital world is a little different. These are companies that are privately held and that are held typically for longer time periods. They're not liquid investments. You're not trading in and out of them day to day. You might be trading in and out of them over the course of many years rather than over days or months. And the idea is you're coming into these companies earlier on when they are still growing and still sometimes at that early startup stages, and they are growing and scaling to then become companies that later on will maybe go public on one of these public stock exchanges or get acquired by a much larger, either public company or a much bigger privately held company down the road. And it's when those big events happen that then the investors who came in early see their returns. And because so many companies are going public later on in their journeys, the private capital markets can be one of the best opportunities for investors to see real tremendous growth. Because if they come into a company at that early startup phase and then it becomes one of the big,
it's like, gosh, I wish I'd invested in Netflix when it was $43.
Exactly. It's like if you came into, Uber, one of these big companies, right? When it was just, when it was just getting started, and just a handful of people, working together to build the startup. So venture capital sits in that early part of the private equity spectrum.
And so, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elisa. It seems like because you sort of, the folks who are picking that early investment have to have that vision and that level of expertise to see the potential of that startup at that seedling stage. It seems like what you do is it's really important. It's the gatekeeping function, or the opening of the gate and to a certain select few. So tell us about that process and who's doing it, including
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an incredible leadership team at Chloe Capital. There are 4 of us on the leadership team, myself, Catherine Cartini, Manico Ramirez, and Erica O'Brien. And then we have about a 25-person extended part-time team that also supports our portfolio companies. And they're all spread out all across the US. We have a fully remote team, but I'm headquartered here in Ithaca, New York. Yeah, and then in terms of how do we select these companies, because that is such an important part of the process, and how do we help them, right, to get to these stages where they can become these much bigger companies. One of the things we do at Chloe Capital is we have a unique community-based investment process that's very collaborative and involves connecting the companies with our larger networks at every stage. So we run what we call our custom signature accelerator programs that are part of the Invest in Women tour. And we do these at cities all across the US. And in each program, we select a cohort of companies that we select from typically hundreds of applicants for each program. We go through a very in-depth screening process and then a rigorous due diligence process that involves a whole committee of experts in finance, tech, market research, business, legal, who take a look at these companies, produce reports on them, and really do a deeper dive to get to know them and figure out which ones are the real deal and have that real high growth potential, and which ones are just not going to really make it. So we look at that, we select cohorts of 5 stellar companies that all fit our thesis of being these high growth tech-enabled companies. And then we put them through a rigorous program that is very efficient at getting them access to as much capital as possible and as many great connections and resources as possible.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's this process of identifying the companies with the growth potential, and then helping them move along in that journey by setting them up with contacts that could be helpful for them along the way, including funding.
Exactly. And they raise an average of $2 million each coming out of these programs and create an average of about 10 jobs each right after coming out of these programs.
I must say this, and is that kind of sort of nurturing of the investments typical in the venture capital industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So all venture capital firms approach this in a different way. Some are a little more hands-off with their investments. Some are more hands-on and collaborative and take this approach. Only a handful have an accelerator program alongside a VC firm. There are a handful that do that. Ours is a little unique in that we've really designed and kind of customized our model for the unique needs of women and underrepresented founders. So the typical venture capital accelerator program has a slightly different structure than ours.
Mm-hmm. And how about tell us what's happening with the fund now. You've got some exciting companies that are already doing incredible stuff already. I know because I attended your incredible summertime outdoor event. I can still taste the figs and cheese. It was wonderful. So tell us about some of those success stories with the companies in the fund.
Happy to, Carolyn. So there have been some incredible success stories already in our first fund. We have of the 18 or so companies that we've invested in so far, we already have 2 M&A transactions. That means mergers and acquisitions. Deals, and a third actually on the way. So to share one exciting success story, one of our companies, Riff Analytics, which is an MIT-based software technology for remote meetings that helps analyze the data from a remote meeting and provide real-time feedback on the team's dynamics. And it's used in educational settings in partnership with some of the top universities in the world, and then in corporate training and education settings. So they collaborate with MIT, with Oxford University, with Cambridge. And this company was acquired last year by Esme Learning, a larger startup in the educational technology space. Together now, this combined company that we came into very early is now worth well over $150 million. They've raised close to $30 million through several funding rounds, and they're raising even more right now, which is very exciting. They're in countries all over the world right now. They're in about 100 different countries around the world with their programs and educational programming, and they have about 90 employees on the team as well. So it's incredible growth. We came into this company just last year. Just last year, we came in when this was literally, we came into a seed stage company with like a handful of founders at a very low valuation. So really exciting to see this kind of incredible growth just in a year.
That must be so rewarding. And of course, when there's an M&A transaction and it's acquired, it raises the value of the shares that you bought at an early stage. So
exactly. So we now have shares in the new larger company, and the valuation has gone up significantly for our investors.
Oh, heavens. That just sounds so incredibly exciting.
Yeah. So Carolyn, can I ask you a question too about this while we're having our coffee chat here? So when we were, thinking about all of this and sort of designing this great opportunity over the last, year or two of how we can, help immigration investors meet their needs while also making an impact, right, and getting a great financial return. What did you see as some of the challenges with the current immigration options, and why were you inspired to create this new and innovative approach?
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you for that. As folks know, I've been in the EB-5 space for longer than I care to mention, and my gray hairs might tell the story. And it's a phenomenal program, and it's just getting better and better. More on that, but I saw that there was a niche that EB-5 wasn't quite filling, and that's the need for investors who want to be in the United States, who want to make a substantial investment, who have the means, and the timing was such that they needed or they wanted to have that presence earlier. And some were not ready to make an investment at the statutory minimum level. And also folks who they wanted to make that substantial investment, very much lawfully sourced, interested in these socially impactful investments as well. But they were not so interested in operating a business like we do as founders and owners of relatively new ventures, 6 a.m. to midnight and beyond. And so I thought there's got to be an investment immigration solution for these international investors in the foreign direct investment space. And that was probably in 2019 or so. And just started really focusing on, there's got to be a way to crack this nut, meet this demand, and that's how that story started. And as I was thinking about this and thinking about, well, what are the exciting opportunities from an investment standpoint that are impactful and that makes sense for these investors, that I can also feel great about in terms of working with and learning more about. And that's when you came along, Elisa, and it was really kind of cool because I was sort of looking for targets, if you will, of my own, of what are some cool things that are happening in the business space that I can learn more about and see if I can fashion an investment immigration model into. And I kind of found you and Chloe on LinkedIn, and just thought this is really cool, and this is kind of what the world needs right now. And then it was even cooler to discover we're both in Ithaca, for heaven's sake, and we have other connections, but those were discovered after the fact. And then, what we started talking in, I think, the fall of 2020. So for us, it's been a journey of, a year and a half going on 2 years. And it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful working with your team. This is new for both of us in terms of putting our expertise together to create this new product, if you will, in investment immigration space and in venture capital. And it's been phenomenal that, our client, is your investor. And when what we needed, and your team was right there. And we sort of both went through these, the journey together. I mean, the mini epic of getting our clients EIN because all the agencies are so backed up, and to have you there and to have your support and that of your team has been incredible. It's been exactly the way I want a client serviced and served. So I thank you.
Yeah, likewise. And I think that's been one of the most exciting things about this process, I think, is getting to know you and your team and being able to collaborate on this process so seamlessly. I think because we have done so much planning and, building up of trust over the last year and a half together, working on this new and innovative approach, I feel like the process went really seamless in that we were all able to be very responsive to each other, even though there were a lot of moving parts, right, with this and a lot of things that are out of all of our control, right, like things like EIN and government agencies and, getting through some of those hurdles. But what I loved was seeing how your team went above and beyond. Anytime there was even a small hurdle that came up, your team was on top of it, rallying all your resources to try to overcome any hurdle there was and finding creative solutions to things to make sure that while we're, staying within all of the boundaries and regulatory environments, that we're also getting creative within that to try to accomplish our clients' goals. And I saw you doing that over and over again. And I saw that how, the teams were all very communicative. Everyone had open communication throughout the process so that we were all able to stay on the same page, get this accomplished. And the results have been incredible to have that, 9-day turnaround, to see that happen. And on the, to see the client's goals get met on the immigration and visa side so seamlessly, while also knowing that that client now is also making a really meaningful investment in something that is going to be helpful to the world and having a great impact, but also something that will get them some bigger financial returns down the road in this kind of higher reward, longer term investment category that is venture capital.
Yeah, and it's just so of the moment, the whole venture, really. I mean, it makes sense from an immigration standpoint, and it makes sense from what we collectively are trying to do in our country, especially. We are trying to broaden the spectrum of investments at all levels, not just financial, but of our resources, of our time, in making our economy stronger, making it more diverse, tapping the talents that have been previously untapped for our own good. And it feels phenomenal to be a part of all of that. And your incredibly focused mission has been an inspiration.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Likewise. And so, Carolyn, tell us, for the folks on the call who are considering, their different options, what advice do you have for folks who are, considering a few different options for their immigration needs?
Yeah.
How should they navigate some of that? Who is this a really ideal fit for? That would be, I think, a great thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the upfront homework is really important. Just like the upfront homework you do, which results in, finding those gems, witness RIF analytics. I don't think there's a shortcut. You've got to kind of put in that initial capital of your resources and your advisors when appropriate, to find the opportunity that makes sense for you and your particular situation and family makeup and your timing needs. And of course, I am typically a part of that conversation, talking to the client and their advisors many, many, many times initially, to help them with this process of identifying the right immigration opportunity from an immigration perspective. And the client is doing quite a lot of work of due diligence on his or her part, investigating, talking to fund managers and talking to their other advisors. And it's a process. And I think that that just has to be understood as a part of it up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, in terms of the fit, it is for investors who first of all, are willing to invest that time into finding that right opportunity. And it's for investors who have a time horizon that is shorter than years to establish a base in the United States. Now, the E-2 isn't permanent residence. It's not a green card. So there's sort of there are pro and cons to both sets of benefits on the permanent side, on the green card side, and then on the temporary side. So the E-2 is a solution for folks who are okay with not having permanent residence. And in fact, that can be beneficial for tax and other reasons for some families. But they want to establish a base more quickly. And so the E-2 is a great fit for them. And as also mentioned earlier, some folks don't have the means or they simply don't want to invest at that higher threshold. It's a firm threshold in the green card side for EB-5 investments. They have to come in minimum at a certain level. And some investors, for whatever reason, of their own, want to have that base, but at a lower level that's still substantial. And so, for those investors, the E-2 is a much better fit.
That's excellent. That's really helpful, I think, for the folks on the call to, learn how to sort of navigate some of these options. And if someone is interested in any of these options and kind of exploring them further, what would you say are some next steps? I mean, I'm happy to share some contact information and stuff with folks and think about how people can.
Absolutely. Would you, Elisa, share your contact information in the chat? And it is for Chloe Capital. Elisa's email is Elisa, ELISA, at chloecapital.com, CHLOECAPITAL.com, and it's coming through the chat. Also info at chloecapital.com, and their website is chloecapital.com. And I've also appreciated that when folks come through my channels and would like to learn more about Elisa and Chloe Capital, her team is incredibly responsive. They're right there. And similarly, we try to be the same. So folks would like to get in touch with us. My email is Carolyn, my first name, CAROLYN, at CAROLYNLEEPLLC.com. It's my email. And also contact at CarolynLeePLLC.com will work as well. And we'll have these email addresses in the link and information that we share out to folks who have registered. Elisa, I'm running out of the time that I allotted to take up your time this morning. So I want to thank you again. And wow, I'm still running my victory lap, and you're right there with me virtually, girl. And we just couldn't be more thrilled, and we're just going to keep going with this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carolyn. We're so thrilled to have this collaboration in place and look forward to many more success stories and victory laps in the future, to helping people meet their immigration goals alongside helping them to make an impact and incredible financial returns. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elisa. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.